Imagine living in a city where your very genetic makeup dictates your entire life.
Yeah, like whether you get to sleep in a literal palace or if you just dive for sport in a public arena.
Exactly. Now imagine your only defense against this kingdom of living, breathing weapons isn't a sword, and it isn't a shield.
Right.
It's a needle, some thread, and a stubborn refusal to stop smiling.
It completely flips the script on what we consider a survival trait, to be honest. When the environment is literally designed to crush you, holding on to your softness becomes this radical act of defiance.
It really does. Welcome to a brand new deep dive. Today we're exploring the social and psychological layers of the novella Powerful by Lauren Roberts.
Which is such a fascinating world to unpack.
It is. We were looking at the kingdom of Ilya, and this is a society that is rigidly stratified by genetics. At the very top, you have the elites. These are people born with just devastating offensive and defensive magical abilities.
And then at the very bottom, you have the mundanes, who are entirely powerless.
Right. And we are dropping right into the grimiest part of this world today. We're looking at the slums of Loot Alley, which operates in the direct shadow of the king's purging trials.
And those trials are essential context for the listener. Because this isn't just a tough neighborhood, you know.
Yeah.
It is a hunting ground.
Yes, it's brutal.
The purging trials are this massive tournament where weaker elites are rounded up and sent to die, and it's strictly a political display of the king's dominance.
It's a constant looming reminder that any perceived weakness is an absolute death sentence.
Exactly.
Which makes our central character study today so fascinating.
Right.
Our mission is to extract the core themes of this story by looking at how two absolute opposites collide and try to survive this meat grinder.
Right. We have Adina and Mac.
Yes, we have Adina, who is this bubbly, fiercely optimistic seamstress, and we have Mac, a brooding, heavily scarred blacksmith who, well, he seemingly communicates entirely in grunts and glares.
He's very intense.
Very. We are going to examine what their dynamic reveals about trust, the psychology of trauma, and the armor we wear. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because ironically, this whole exploration of systemic violence starts with something as mundane as a pastry.
The sticky bun.
Yes.
It is such a brilliant, grounding narrative device.
Yeah.
I mean, in a world designed by magical warfare, the catalyst for the entire plot is just basic human hunger.
Yeah.
And it actually sets the trajectory of Adina's life twice.
Let's look at that first instance. So Adina is a phaser, meaning her specific elite ability allows her to pass through solid matter.
Right.
And years ago, she is starving. She tries to steal a honey-covered sticky bun in the market, and she ends up fleeing from an imperial guard.
Typical Tuesday in Loot Alley.
Basically, yeah. And in her blind panic, she literally phases directly through another girl on the street, a silver-haired thief named Paedyn.
And that physical collision forges a lifeline, because survival in Loot Alley isn't something you can do alone.
No, definitely not.
So Paedyn becomes the thief. Adina sews to make whatever coin she can, and they build a life together in a literal trash pile they call the fort.
The fort.
Yeah, they become each other's ultimate shield against Ilya.
But survival in Ilya isn't just about finding a shield, you know? It is about what you do when that shield is ripped away from you.
Which is exactly what happened.
Right. Paedyn, who actually becomes known as the Silver Savior, gets selected for the purging trials. She is taken to the castle. So Adina is left entirely unprotected.
She's lonely, she's starving again, and the cycle just repeats.
Yeah, she steals another sticky bun, she drops her bundle of clothes, and she is once again running for her life from an imperial.
Only this time, the rescue is entirely different. She doesn't accidentally bump into someone. She is forcefully yanked backward through a solid brick wall.
It's pulled right through it.
By this massive, soot-stained man.
Mac. Enter Mac.
Enter Mac. He appears to be a fellow phaser. He is covered in scars, sports a single streak of silver hair, and he just seems instantly, deeply annoyed by her existence.
Which, okay, brings up a major question about his character right from the start. It's like a golden retriever teaming up with a lone wolf, right?
That's a great way to put it.
But wait, if Mac is so self-serving as he claims, why did he actually risk exposing himself to save a girl over a pastry? I mean, if you were a lone wolf in a dystopia where drawing attention gets you killed, why do that?
Because it wasn't a rescue.
Really?
No, it was a calculated acquisition. Mac had been observing Adina, Earlier that morning, he actually watched her desperately waving goodbye to Paedyn as the carriage took the silver savior to the trials.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mac doesn't care about the sticky bun or the guard. He recognizes Adina as a direct, emotional tether to a highly publicized trial contestant.
Ah, so he's using her.
He needs a way into that orbit, and Adina's moment of vulnerability just provided the perfect opening.
I am honestly struggling to reconcile Mac's actions here. This paints him as a predator, to be honest. He's essentially treating Adina like a canary in a coal mine.
Yeah, it's dark.
He has built this highly controlled, sterile environment to keep himself alive. And he is bringing her in purely to exploit her connections.
It is entirely exploitative at the beginning. I mean, the dynamic is born out of desperation on both sides. Mac needs what Adina represents.
Right.
And Adina, suddenly stripped of Paedyn's protection, desperately needs the physical shelter that Mac can provide. So they strike a highly specific bargain.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The deal they make. Mac needs to infiltrate the heavily guarded castle, so he demands Adina use her skills to sew him a flawless replica of an Imperial Guard's uniform.
Specifically requesting 5.5 yards of white polyester to pull it off.
5.5 yards. So specific. And in exchange, he offers her food, sanctuary in his blacksmith shop, and crucially a promise that once he gets into the castle, he will help her see Paedyn one last time.
And the contrast between them in this shared space is visually and thematically heavy. I mean, look at their output.
Yeah.
Mac is a blacksmith whose entire existence centers on violence. He spends his days forging multi-bladed folding knives and throwing stars that he just casually embeds into the brick walls of his shop.
While Adina is a seamstress, crafting like pleated skirts and bright blue shirts, she brings absolute vibrant chaos into his soot-stained world.
She really does.
But going back to that feeling of exploitation as they spend time together, Mac's behavior shifts in ways that are deeply confusing. Like, Adina is snooping around his shop and accidentally slices her hand open on one of his hidden daggers.
Right.
You would expect the gruff, pragmatic survivor to berate her for being careless.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Instead, he lifts her onto the counter. And he is shockingly gentle. His hands are occupied, so he uses his teeth to open a water canteen and carefully cleans her wound.
He also transitions from merely harboring her to actively instructing her. Like after Adina is harassed by a group of men in a dark alley.
That scene.
Yeah. Max certainly retaliates against the men, but more importantly, he teaches Adina how to throw a proper punch. He physically places his hands on her hips to guide her stance and correct her mechanics.
And that is exactly what makes me push back on his motives.
How so?
Well, he cleans her wounds, he teaches her to fight, but he is still actively planning to use her for his own incredibly dangerous ends.
Yeah.
How can we view this gentleness as anything other than him grooming her?
Oh.
Like he is making sure his tools stay sharp and functional.
That is the exact tension the narrative asks you to sit with. Is it grooming, or is it the agonizing slow drip of empathy from a man who has completely forgotten how to feel?
That's a heavy question.
What's fascinating here is how the story masterfully uses tactile intimacy to explore this. Adina has to wrap a measuring tape around Mac's bare chest and shoulders to size the Imperial uniform.
Right, physical closeness.
Exactly. He has to physically manipulate her posture to teach her a punch. For a man who has isolated himself for years to avoid attachment, these physical interactions begin to dismantle his psychological defenses.
It is a profound irony. Adina is literally weaving a physical disguise for Mac, the Imperial uniform, but the act of creating it strips away his emotional disguise.
Beautifully said.
Thanks. And I think we have to talk about Adina's armor too, because she isn't defenseless. While Mac spends his life forging literal steel to keep the world at bay, Adina weaves a psychological armor of relentless optimism.
Yes, her optimism is her shield.
Exactly. Her perkiness isn't ignorance of how dangerous Loot Alley is. It is a refusal to let the harshness of Ilya extinguish her light. Is Mac starting to realize that her softness is actually a form of strength?
Which forces Mac to reevaluate his entire worldview. He has always equated softness with death. But Adina proves that softness can be a sustaining force.
Yeah.
But the tragedy of their dynamic is that just as genuine trust takes root, the foundation of their bargain collapses.
The plot twist here is devastating. An Imperial Guard approaches Adina on the street, and for a second you think, oh no, she is finally going down for the pastry.
Right, the anxiety is real.
But she isn't arrested. She is summoned. The future king, Prince Kit, has officially requested her presence at the castle to be Paedyn's seamstress for the upcoming trial balls.
It is a massive stroke of luck for her that completely incinerates Mac's secret plan.
Adina is ecstatic. She rushes into the crowded market to find Mac, assuming he will be thrilled. The uniform is nearly finished, and now she has legitimate, sanctioned access to the castle.
She thinks they can just walk right in.
Right. They can just walk through the front gates together. But Mac doesn't celebrate. He panics. He drags her into an alley, and the betrayal finally spills out. He drops the illusion. Mac reveals he is not a phaser. He is a wielder.
And to understand the sheer gravity of that confession, we really need to unpack the mechanics of this world's magic.
Yeah, please do.
Think of a wielder not as a self-contained battery of power, but as a universal adapter. Mac doesn't have an inherent offensive ability. He has the terrifying capacity to temporarily hijack and utilize the powers of any elite in his immediate proximity.
It is the ultimate parasitic magic. And politically, it is an absolute death sentence. The king's enforcer, Prince Kai, is the only publicly acknowledged wielder in all of Ilya.
Precisely. Because the king doesn't just fear other wielders because they are strong, he hunts them down because they represent a fundamental threat to his monopoly on violence.
Right, if someone can use your guard's powers against them.
The entire hierarchy collapses. So Mac has lived his entire life as a walking target.
But the political danger pales in comparison to the interpersonal damage he just inflicted on Adina. Because the truth of his plan wasn't just to wear a white polyester uniform and sneak through a door.
No, it was much darker.
He needed to keep Adina physically glued to his side during the infiltration so he could wield her phasing power to pass through the castle walls.
Because his objective was to rescue his cousin, Hera, who had also been dragged into the purging trials.
Oh, wow.
Without Adina serving as his proximity battery, he has no phasing ability. Without her, his plan to save the only family he has left is effectively dead.
I want to ask you, the listener, to just imagine you are Adina in this exact moment. You think you have finally found a safe harbor. You think this hardened survivor actually sees you.
Yeah.
Only to realize you were never the passenger in this relationship. You were the fuel. Your literal genetic essence was just a lockpick for a suicide mission. How do you even process that level of manipulation?
You are looking at the catastrophic intersection of systemic oppression and interpersonal trust. I mean, in a society that actively executes people for their genetics, manipulation ceases to be a moral failing and becomes a mandatory survival tactic.
That's a terrifying thought.
Honesty is a luxury Mac has simply never been able to afford. The system forced him to view people as utilities.
But does systemic trauma excuse interpersonal betrayal? I mean, Adina's reaction tells us no. It might explain it, but it doesn't heal the wound. She is heartbroken. She leaves Mac behind in the slums and heads to the castle alone.
And the setting shift here is jarring. We move from the soot and grime of Loot Alley to the glittering, suffocating opulence of the king's castle.
Adina is surrounded by luxurious silver fabrics, sewing magnificent dresses for Paedyn, but she is hollowed out by the betrayal. And then, defying all logic, Mac simply phases through the solid wall of her sewing room.
He executed the infiltration anyway. He put on the replica uniform, risked certain execution if caught, and broke into the most heavily fortified building in the kingdom.
Just to apologize.
Yes. Before he goes to the dungeons to find Hera, he stops at Adina's room.
He comes to disarm himself completely. Not with a weapon, but with the truth. He strips away the final layers of his emotional armor and gives Adina his real name, Makoto Kitan.
A huge moment of trust.
It is, and we finally learn why he is so broken. He explains that his parents were mundanes, powerless citizens who deeply resented his wielder abilities. When Mac was just 14 years old, his drunken father threatened to sell him to the king for bounty money.
We really need to pause on the psychological horror of that moment. A father, feeling so emasculated and powerless in a society that worships magic, decides to reclaim his power by mutilating his own magically gifted son.
It is horrific. His father slashed Mac's face with a sword, which is what created the permanent jagged scar on his lip, and told his own child that he didn't deserve to smile.
God.
That was the inciting incident. That was the night 14-year-old Mac and his cousin Hera fled into the slums to hide forever.
It recontextualizes everything we know about him. Mac hasn't just been hiding from the king's guards all these years. He has been hiding from the belief that he is a monster.
Yeah.
A burden, a creature fundamentally unworthy of joy. Hera was the only person who shielded him from that reality.
And he leaves Adina's room to go save her. He phases back into the walls. But the narrative doesn't give us a daring rescue here.
No, it doesn't.
Instead, it gives us a quiet, devastating gut punch. Later that evening, Adina accidentally crosses paths with the king in a hallway. The king is making casual, almost bored small talk about the casualties of the first purging trial. And he casually drops a mention of the Veil Girl from the slums.
Hera. The king doesn't even use her name. She is just a statistic in his political theater.
Hera is dead. Adina doesn't wait. She immediately flees the glittering castle and rushes back to the grime of the slums, back to the blacksmith shop. And she finds Max standing in the doorway, completely shattered.
He is clutching a crumpled flyer that announces Hera's death.
Yeah. He collapses into Adina's arms, sobbing uncontrollably, whispering that it should have been him.
The thematic weight of this moment is staggering. Max spent his entire life building defenses. He forged multi-bladed knives. He learned to fight. He possessed one of the most feared, godlike, magical abilities in the entire realm.
All of it.
And when it came down to the single most important moment of his life, all of that power was entirely useless. He couldn't save the person he loved.
So what does this all mean for our understanding of power? Because the resolution of this story has nothing to do with magic. Did Max plan to save Hera ever really have a chance, or was he always just a scared 14-year-old boy trying to fix the past?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a profound tragedy. His magical power failed him. And days after Hera's death, Mac is drowning in a void of guilt and grief. And it isn't an elite power that pulls him back.
Right.
It is Adina. She is determined to force him to remember how to live. She drags him into an alley and literally forces this massive, scarred blacksmith to practice skipping, just to shock a laugh out of it.
It is the ultimate triumph of mundane empathy. Adina's non-magical willingness to sit with him in the darkest parts of his pain is the only thing that saves him from being consumed by it.
Exactly.
And during this clumsy healing moment, Mac reveals one final secret that completely redefines his earlier actions. Remember the thugs who harassed Adina in the alley?
Oh, yeah. The ones Mac beat up before teaching her to punch.
Right. Well, Mac confesses that he didn't just beat them up. He had previously hunted down every single thug in Loot Alley.
We really?
Yes. He pinned them against brick walls and forced them, under threat of horrific violence, to memorize Adina's specific facial features, the exact curl of her hair, the tiny scar on her hand. He terrorized the criminal underworld to ensure no one would ever dare touch her.
Wow. It is an incredibly twisted, hyper-violent manifestation of care. It perfectly encapsulates Mac, a man who only knows how to express love through the language of threats and armor.
But the beauty is that Adina doesn't ask him to be a weapon anymore. They agree to leave his sterile, weapon-filled shop and spend a night together back in the fort, Adina's trash pile sanctuary.
They just find comfort in each other's presence, no uniforms, no plots, no magic.
Which serves as the ultimate thesis of Powerful. The Society of Ilya categorizes human worth entirely by output. You are defensive, you are offensive, you are a wielder, or you are useless.
Yet the narrative systematically proves that the most life-altering, transformative moments occur entirely outside of those magical metrics.
We journeyed from a desperate girl stealing a honey-covered sticky bun, to a web of systemic betrayal, to a deeply tragic loss. But the lingering note isn't one of despair.
Not at all.
It is a testament to the resilience of human connection. It is about the radical act of forgiveness and making the conscious choice to find a smile again, even when the world violently tried to carve it off your face.
It leaves us with the profound realization that our ultimate resilience does not stem from the emotional or physical walls we construct. It comes entirely from the people we are brave enough to let inside them.
And bringing this out of the slums of Ilya and directly into your reality, we all participate in this dynamic, don't we?
We definitely do.
You might not be dodging the purging trials, but we all build our own versions of the fort out of the scraps of our experiences. We all tailor our own imperial uniforms. The personas we wear to the office, to family gatherings, to social events, just to blend in, to project invulnerability, to keep a harsh world at arm's length.
We constantly weaponize our productivity, our intellect, or our stoicism as shields. We're convinced that if we just make ourselves useful enough or tough enough, we won't get hurt.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to carry with you. We live in a culture that constantly reinforces the idea that your worth is dictated by what you can do, your output, your tangible skills, your personal powers.
Right.
But what happens when you finally stop trying to impress or intimidate the world? What happens when you strip off the heavy armor and simply let someone else see the scars underneath? Maybe true power isn't about the weapons you can wield against the world. Maybe ultimately true power is defined by what you are finally willing to put down,